There's a voice you hear more than any other voice you hear in your life. Not your parents, not your friends, not your pastor, not your teacher, your own voice. And here's why that's scary. You can hear the voice every single day without ever questioning it. You wake up with it, you walk with it, you make decisions with it, you go to bed with it, and sometimes that voice is the reason you keep becoming smaller. Now think about the last time you made a mistake. What did you say to yourself? I'm so stupid, I always do this, why can't I get these things right? Now think about the last time you were afraid to do something. What if I fail? I'm probably not good enough. People will laugh at me. Who am I to think I can do this? But here's the question. Who taught you to talk to yourself that way? But here's what I have discovered. Sometimes the person standing between you and the life you're capable of living is not your enemy. It's the voice that you believe about yourself. Last time we talked about the broken mirror. We said that experiences can distort the way you see yourself. But there's something else you need to understand. A mirror doesn't speak, it reflects. So if the mirror has been cracked, something else has to interpret the reflection. And that's where your inner voice comes in. Your inner voice looks at the reflection and says, see, you're not enough. You see, nobody wants you. You see, you will fail again. See, other people are better than you. And after hearing that voice long enough, you stop arguing with it. You start believing it. Eventually, you don't need somebody else to discourage you. You've learned how to do it yourself. And that's when the broken mirror becomes dangerous, because the voice inside your head starts protecting the very identity that's hurting you. Now, let's be honest. We often speak to ourselves in ways we will never speak to someone we love. Now, imagine your closest friend failed at something, and then they come to you and said, I fail. Would you look at them and say, you're useless, you always mess things up, you will never amount to anything? Probably not. You would encourage them. You'd remind them that one failure isn't the whole story. You tell them to learn from it and try again. But when you fail, suddenly the rules change. I'm an idiot, I'm hopeless, I never get anything right. Why do we give other people grace but give ourselves a sentence? Now, some of us have become our own worst critics because we mistake cruelty for accountability. But those things aren't the same thing. Accountability says, I made a mistake, I need to learn. Shame says, I'm a mistake. Accountability says, I handled that badly. But shame says, I'm a bad person. Accountability points at what happens. Shame points at who you are. Now, you need to learn the difference. Because if you don't, you will spend your life trying to punish yourself into becoming better. And people don't grow well under constant self-contempt. Here's something fascinating. Every time you repeat something to yourself, you're reinforcing a way of thinking. If you constantly tell yourself you can't, you begin looking for evidence that you can't. If you constantly say, nobody believes in me, you will notice every person who doubts you and overlook the people who support you. If you say, I'm just not confident, you will begin behaving like confidence isn't available to you. Your thoughts don't automatically become your reality, but the thoughts you repeatedly believe can influence the way you behave, and your behavior, repeated long enough, starts shaping your life. That's why this matters. The voice in your head isn't just commentary, it can become direction. But here's the trap. I want to make something very clear right now. Not every negative thought you have is true, and not every thought you have deserves agreement. You can think something and still be wrong. Listen to that again. A thought being inside your head doesn't make it a fact. Your mind can say you're gonna fail, but you can answer, but maybe I'm gonna try. Your mind can tell you you're not ready, but you can answer, well then I will learn. Your mind can say they are better than you, but you can answer, their journey isn't my measurement. Your mind can say you made a mistake, and you can answer, yes, but I can grow from it. You don't have to fight every thought. Sometimes you simply have to stop treating every thought like a prophecy. A thought is a suggestion. It doesn't automatically become the truth. Now let's go deeper. Sometimes the voice in your head isn't really yours. It's an echo. You heard someone say something about you so many times that eventually you start saying it yourself. Maybe someone repeatedly told you are lazy. Years later, you don't need them anymore. You say, I'm lazy. Someone told you you're not smart. Now, every difficult assignment becomes evidence. Someone made you feel unwanted. Now, every delayed response feels like rejection. Someone constantly compared you to others. Now, you can't even celebrate your own progress without checking how far someone else has gone. Their voice became your inner voice and you didn't even realize it. That's why the first part of this teaching series asks, which pieces of the broken mirror have you mistaken for your own reflection? But now this second part asks, whose voice have you mistaken for your own? Because sometimes the voice you are fighting isn't your voice. It's an old voice that you've been carrying. You have to question the voice. Imagine someone walks into your house and started insulting you every morning. Every single day, it tells you you are useless, you're not good enough, you will never succeed. Would you eventually say, well, they are saying it every day, so it must be true? No, you won't have to do that. You would ask, who are you and why should I believe you? So why don't we do that with our thoughts? When the voice says you're not capable, ask, according to what evidence? When it says nobody values you, ask, is that actually true? When it says you will always be like this, ask, who said I can't change? When it says you've already ruined everything, ask, is this a fact or am I speaking from emotions? This is where maturity begins. Not when you stop having negative thoughts, but when you stop automatically believing them. Now, there's a difference between humility and self-rejection. This is very important. Some people think having a low opinion of themselves makes them humble. No, it doesn't. See, humility isn't saying I'm worthless. Humility is being able to say, I have strengths and I have weaknesses. I have things to learn and I have things to contribute. You don't become humble by pretend you are nothing. You become humble by seeing yourself accurately, because here's the problem with self-rejection. You can't consistently become what you refuse to believe you can become. If you keep telling yourself I'm nobody, eventually you start acting like nobody. If you keep telling yourself I have nothing to offer, you stop offering anything. If you keep telling yourself I don't deserve to be here, you keep leaving rooms that you were qualified to enter. And that's why your inner voice matters. Now, here's one of the most practical things I want you to take from this teaching. When something goes wrong, stop asking what is wrong with me. Start asking what's happening and what can I learn from it. Instead of why am I so stupid, ask what did I misunderstand. Instead of why can't I ever get things right, ask what do I need to improve. Instead of I'm terrible at this, ask what skill am I missing. Do you see the difference? The first question attacks your identity. The second question develops your capacity. Don't turn a problem into a verdict about yourself. A mistake is an event. A weakness is an area for growth. A failure is an information. None of them automatically gets to become your identity. This is where my faith now comes back to this conversation, because eventually you have to ask, if I should not define myself by every voice that I've heard, then whose voice should define me? And for me, that answer is God. Before you ever succeeded, God knew you. Before you failed, God knew you. Before somebody praised you, God knew you. Before somebody rejected you, God knew you. People met you at different chapters of your lives and formed opinions about you. God was there before the chapter began. That's why I can't build my identities entirely on human opinions. People can see a moment, but God sees the whole story. People can see your weakness, but God sees your potential. People can remember your worst mistakes, but God can still speak to your future. And sometimes the voice you need to hear most isn't the loudest voice in your head. It's the truest one. Maybe you've been hard on yourself for a long time. Maybe you've spent years trying to become someone you're not just because you thought the real you wasn't enough. Maybe you've looked at your life and only remembered everything that went wrong. Maybe every time you try to step forward, an inner voice whispered, who do you think you are? And perhaps you've listened, but I want you to pause just for a moment. What if you stop speaking to yourself like an enemy? What if you allowed yourself to grow without constantly insulting yourself for not being further along? What if you could say, I made a mistake, but I am still becoming. I have weaknesses, but I'm not worthless. I have failed, but I am not a failure. I don't know everything, but I can learn. I'm not where I want to be yet, but I'm not where I used to be. Maybe that's where the rebuilding begins. Not with pretending that you're perfect, but with finally learning to speak to yourself with truth and grace. Now, before you go, I want you to do something this week. Listen to yourself. Not just what you say out loud. Listen to the things you say inside your mind and inside your head. When you make a mistake, what do you call yourself? When somebody succeeds, what do you tell yourself? When you look at your future, what does your inner voice predict? When you walk into a room, what does the voice say? And here is the question I want you to write down. Would I speak to someone I love the way I speak to myself? If the answer is no, then something needs to change. Not because you need to flatter yourself, but because you need to learn the difference between truth and cruelty. And next time we meet, we're even going deeper. Because if the mirror is broken and the voice in the mirror has been shaped by years of experiences, then there's another question we have to answer. What do I actually believe about myself? Not what I say I believe, not what I post online, not what I want people to think I believe. What do I truly believe about me? Because your deepest beliefs about yourself are quietly writing the script for your life. And that's where we're going next. The third part of this series. The stories you believe about yourself. I'll see you there. In the meantime, think and grow and share this video.